So initially you're from Ireland, aren't you? I mean, you still based there at all?
No, so we're all living in London. We moved over February last year.
So whereabouts in Ireland were you from originally?
Galway, West Coast.
Is there any kind of music scene there at all? I mean, in my head, I imagine it's kind of like sort of raggle-taggle hippies who moved to the coast, or is there like a vibrant young scene there at all?
You know what? There's a small scene of like all different bands, singer-songwriters, artists of all kinds. You know, it's very small, really small city. I don't even know if it would be a city if it was in England. Very small, but like because of that, I always say if anyone asks and stuff, that it's actually it was really nice because what we had was no pressure from a sort of the scene's sort of expectations. You know what I mean? So like I can imagine that, you know, when a certain sort of type of music or whatever is kicking off in your clique, we'll say, you have to sort of conform. Whereas in Galway, you didn't have to. Like the band that we supported most played, you know, pop music. Another band, you know, were like folk stuff. There was singer-songwriters everywhere, and we just all sort of supported each other. Mm-hmm. Whether you would ever conceive of playing that music yourself or not, you know what I mean? Which was really nice because it sort of took the limits off. We just did what we wanted. We just played the music that we wanted to play without sort of worrying at an early stage about that kind of shite.
Yeah, because you've somehow managed to get your own sound, which is really difficult for a guitar band these days. Because
good to hear, thank you.
Pretty well every single permutation's been attempted, but you've got your own little twist in it. And do you think that's something to do with that? You know, being from Galway and being that isolation.
I do. I would expect so. I think that is exactly how it felt. Anyway, because we were just sort of in a bubble of our own. It's kind of like how I'd say a lot of people are going to be doing really creative things in lockdown because they're just sort of, there's no outside world influence, but there's also, you know, because you can't go outside your door. New York is as close as, you know, the venue down the road. So like for us, I was listening to the Velvet Underground and the Clash and some, you know, Australian band or whatever. Like it didn't I couldn't see any of them, so they're all meant, it was kind of all meant the same thing. So to me, I could sort of just we could just choose. We didn't feel limited, you know what I mean? It was like liberating.
Yeah,
limitation was liberating, if you know what I mean.
So in a way, you're a product of what you could call a streaming generation, where all music comes at you flat and all at once. It's got no sense of time or context. It's just pieces of music.
That's true. I like to try and put time back into it as well if I can. So like, I love seeing, you know, like reading like books on like, you know, 60, maybe like Danny Fields and the Ramones or whatever, you know, and sort of like get the context of it. I love that. I love taking a look at what the context was, seeing Iggy Pop and the Stooges and see like them like MC5 and everything that was going on there. I think it's cool, but I think we're really lucky that, like you said, we can do that, you know, that like we can do that. We can look at music from the 50s, well, from any time really, but like from the 50s, anywhere in the world, and sort of just go, let it all in.
What you know, despite this avalanche of sounds that are coming at you, I mean, was there a moment or a band or a pop culture moment that had a massive impact on you when it wasn't just music, it was life-changing?
I guess there's probably a few actually, man. Probably from like very like naturally, sort of like 2000s indie bands, and like from probably Libertines and Strokes, Arctic Monkeys. That sort of like earlier 2000s indie bands was when we were just getting into music. So I think we all sort of, that was like, oh my God, music is the coolest shit in the world, and it's happening right now. You know what I mean? So that felt like ours. Do you know what I mean? You know, we felt a sense of ownership to that. Until that point, I was listening to like what my parents would put on, and I think we all probably were listening to. You know, you listen to a lot of what like the radio, what people put on, and I think those 2000s bands sort of felt like bands that we could get behind. You know, so I think that was kind of life changing. And I think I remember listening to a Jules Holland CD. My parents got me, and it was I think the first song on it was Brian Storm by Arctic Monkeys, and I remember hearing "We Can't Take Our Eyes Off the T-Shirt and Ties Combination, See You Later, Innovator," and I was like, shit, didn't realize like words in a song could mean, you know, it was just something I'd never put together, that words in a song could sort of pack a punch or something like that.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's an absolutely brilliant lyric writer, isn't he?
Brilliant. Unreal. And then after that, so after I had that, I think established a sort of music that was yours. I felt a bit more adventurous then, listening to, like, my mum showed me the Smiths, and that changed everything as well.
Yeah, so that initial thing, the Arctic Monkeys, like the door opens and there's a whole lineage of great stuff out there.
That's it. And then you just go back, and you know, you go, like, the thing is, they keep on coming. Like, the further back you go, you know, like, it's sort of like you can go right back to the Kinks, the Stones. I haven't even gone much even before them, but I'm sure there's loads that I haven't even thought of. Like Woody Guthrie. Do you know what I mean? Go back. Even like Robert Johnson, do you know what I mean? He like, sort of just, man.
It's timeless, isn't it? And you're just carrying the baton for that period, and for 100 years' time or 100 years ago, the spirit is always there, isn't it?
That's it, man. That's it. It's the spirit, yeah. I feel like I can see, like you said, like direct sort of like lineages up to like bands like Arctic Monkeys or anyone like Oasis or any of these like 90s 2000s bands. Even up to now you can see them, but I guess it's kind of harder to see now because you're in it. It's probably harder to come outside of yourself.
Now listen to your tunes, that you sound slightly more on the art, you know, the art pop or the art school edge of it than the populist edge of it. I mean, Oasis are a great band, but I hear you more towards it's kind of a guitar pop music, but twisted. It's got an artful edge to it.
That's good. That's good to hear, man. I think it's not conscious, but I think we definitely try to keep ourselves interested. And I think maybe that's what comes out of that attempt. You know what I mean? It's like we're trying to just like do something that we find interesting, and then what comes from that is what you hear as maybe slightly like artier side. But I don't think it's not like premeditated. It's not like,
yeah.
I think the best thing is to be like open. I really do. Now more than ever, I think the best thing is just to be like open. So like, I think there was definitely a time when, you know, mods and rockers kind of job where you sort of, you know, I mean, there's a lot to be said for that kind of like fanatical loyalty to like a sound and a look, and you know, there's a lot of cool things about those things. But I think now, like you said, in the streaming world where just everything's cool, everything's not cool. It's cool to be uncool, and it's uncool to be cool. It's just, you sort of, I think if you limit yourself, it's not nothing wrong with it. It's just a shame, I think.
I think the advantage you have with that attitude is you create pop culture on your own terms. You pick and choose all the bits you like. It's your aesthetic. It's not aesthetic that's dictated to you by somebody else. So it's actually more personal, isn't it?
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's creating the world in your own terms. I love that. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's just like, and all the greats did that. Do you know what I mean? They all did. Like, they all, even if they didn't know they were doing it, like you sort of like, what sets you apart is obviously, what's different about you is what sets you apart, and what sets you apart is what defines you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It seems it's so obvious, but at the same time, it's sort of something you still don't act on, I think, a lot.
Speaking of the sort of iconic pop culture figures, what's he like working with Alan McGee?
That's a good segue. He's great. He's brilliant. He's an absolute legend. Yeah. We're he's a great guy, great mind, brilliant ideas. He's so dedicated, passionate is the word. So passionate about music. And like, that sounds obvious because you're like, of course, this music legend who's been in the game for a couple of decades, of course he's passionate about music. But it's I think the more people you meet, the more you realize it's quite rare. It's quite a rare quality to have someone who's like pure and passionate about music. As like his number one passion is the music itself. I think it's brilliant. And yeah, so fortunate that our paths crossed and we can work with him, because me and Sean had both read his book, Riots, Raves, Running a Label. We were like big fans. We were big fans of him and what he'd done for ages in Galway. Here in Galway, like sort of scheming and like I said, in our own bubble, making a world for ourselves, and like imagining a world where like Alan McGee's our big fan and stuff. And what can happen?
How did he find you? What was the initial connection?
Bizarre. So I think probably after reading that book, obviously things don't come to you just by you reading someone's book and imagining that they're going to happen, obviously, you know. So I think we just messaged him, sent a message, went, do you know what? He seems great. That book was cool. Let's get onto this guy. Got onto him. He didn't reply. Sean to him a few times. Nothing. You know, he's busy. Probably gets hundreds of emails or Instagram messages or whatever. So didn't expect. And you can't expect people to reply either. Like we don't expect anyone to ever, because you'll be disappointed for the rest of your life if you do. But then we moved to London in February, and I was reading an interview McGee had done with the NME, I think, and he was talking about how music's back and there's so much great guitar music around and blah blah blah, and Idols had sort of like really kicked up then, bands like Idols, so like they were sort of like spearheading this like music thing. He was like, oh, it's great, can't wait to see more guitar bands. I'd love guitar bands to get in touch with me, stuff like that. Like contact me on like Instagram or something. So it's grand. So Sean sent him an Instagram message, and he got back immediately. Send me your best song. And Sean, we sent him Bills and Pills, and he loved it. And he said, "Where are you? He wanted to come see us." And he thought we were in Galway still, because we literally just moved. Hadn't even changed any of our. There was no pictures of us in London. We hadn't changed any of our posts or whatever to, you know, because we just moved. This is like a weekend. So he was planning to come over to Galway to see us, and we're like, oh, we're in Northwest London. He was like, brilliant. He came up to rehearsal, and the rest was good times.
So does he have does his vision for the band match yours, or is he bringing kind of pop culture history and ideas? And
yeah, I think what we have, the overlap, there's a lot of overlap, I think, in our visions. Like he and us are both like just really passionate, and I think we're also grafters, like he is. Like we've worked, and we do work really hard on music. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And we always have. We've worked really hard for years. And I think he appreciates that. And we appreciate that he hasn't stopped grafting since he was 20 in some form or other. with creation. Do you know what I mean? Like, or with different music related endeavors. Like, I think there's that. I think I think he loves I think he gets the romance of a band. Do you know what I mean? Of like, and the passion and sort of stuff like that, and like the four of us live together and stuff, and he loves that. Do you know, he gets that. He gets why that is important for us to do and stuff. And I think that's really important, because that's like the foundation of what we're doing. You know, is four people coming together to like try and like do something special. And I think because of that, we really get each other. And he's so supportive, and he brings in a lot. He brings in so many ideas and stories, and, you know, sort of questions. He questions a lot and stuff, you know, and it's really good, because he's also trustworthy and trusting. So you can sort of bounce ideas off him, take on what he says, ask him what he thinks of this, or ask him, should we be doing this instead, or whatever, you know. He's great.
What about Ireland itself? I mean, it's almost like a naff question. I mean, there's an amazing scene of bands coming out at the moment, but I guess you're so far away from the epicenters, you're probably as detached from that as any English scene. Or is there a sense that, you know, you feel distantly attached to it, and there's a sense that something is happening in Ireland?
That is, yeah. You actually put your finger on it well there, because a lot of people ask us what it's like to be in the middle of that scene, but it's exactly what you said. We are a couple of 100 miles away, or a couple of 100 kilometers away, and, you know, didn't really go to Dublin much. So we actually were quite sort of in our own little bubble. Now it's great, like seeing a lot of bands coming out of Dublin. We know a lot of bands coming out of Dublin doing really well. You know, it's great. It's not like it's sort of like Timbuktu, you know, obviously. It is the same country. We've played there loads. We've met those bands and stuff, like loads of bands who are all sort of really starting to kick up. But we have always been sort of in our own little world a little bit. And then even when we came to London, we moved to Northwest London, which isn't particularly well known for its music scene at the moment. You know, there's a lot going on south. There's a lot of bands east, west, even west, like everywhere really, except, and it sort of suits us because I think we're happy doing our thing, because we've always done that. We've always just sort of done our thing in our own world, and it's sort of a similar story because we can go 20 minutes now, or like 40 minutes down to the Windmill in Brixton, you know, or we can go to such and such a venue in East London. We can go to Dalston if we want to. It's really close. It's great, but it's also, it's nice to feel like we're sort of also in our own little. I think that's kind of just where we have always sat. So it sort of feels like, I don't know, natural to us.
I like your songs lyrically are interesting. There's
thank you.
It's kind of it's observational, sort of a quirky sense of humour, and then it's sort of an interesting take on things. Is that just is that like a deliberate style, or is that just something that just comes the way you write, or whoever writes?
Is it a deliberate style? I think it's probably just a combination of like all the things that I like about, no, it's a combination of me trying to do all the things I like about lyrics, other people's lyrics, and trying to filter out things I don't like. So it's conscious in the sense that I like lyrics to have at least, sorry, I'm trying to just describe it. I think it's great to focus on particulars. I think it's great to like sort of like make something that seems really particular and sort of on the nose. It seems on the nose, you know what I mean? I like that. And that's what I think, for me, like a lot of the great lyricists like Morrissey, Alex Turner, even Ray Davis, loads. I mean, yeah, you could go on and on. Velvet, what's Lou Reed? They could all that. Iggy Pop. they could all like make a line that's just like on the nose. But also, I like things that have maybe that like maybe you can sort of scratch under a little bit if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So I try and bring that together. I think humor is great. I would definitely try and put some humor in. I think like Morrissey obviously is the king of like quirky, ironic, very dark humor.
Mm-hmm.
But I think humor is great. I think humor is like quite underrated, can be underrated in music. I think it's easy because I think like a great writer, like novelist, can write with humor and be seen as, you know, like critically acclaimed very easily. Do you know what I mean? Like someone like Roddy Doyle or James Joyce or someone, like they're really very humorous people. Do you know? They wrote very funny books, really. Do you know what I mean? They were hilarious. But I think in music, it becomes parody quite quickly. Do you know? You can like, but I think if you do it well, like Morrissey does, or like I said, all these people, like even Jarvis Cocker, like common people, do you know, it's hilarious. It's hilarious, but it's heartbreaking. You know, I think it's holding those two. That's what I like. I think is to hold the really, really mundane things and the biggest questions in life together, and then to hold comedy and tragedy together, and to hold, you know, I like to try and sort of do that because I think that's how sort of life is. Do you know what I mean? So like, you know, like the Stranded in Stansted, the song we had just before our last single before this, you know, is all, you know, it's like it seems it's like a lighthearted theme, surface level theme, but it's also quite sad. It's also like at the time, it's a true story, but at the time that was like a horrible situation, Joe. Relatively, and it's about that as well. I think it's important to know that anything that feels like it's the most important thing in the world at the time is worth writing about. That's what, in my opinion, and I think like Ray Davis would attest to that. It's like for me, running for that plane was the most important thing in the world, and there has to be something to be said for that, because like what I thought of, you know, the politics, UK politics at the time, did go out the window for 20 minutes, half an hour, when I was running for this flight. You know, everything went out the window. Every other, you know, I think there's something to be said for that, because I think like it's all well and good writing 100 songs about how much you hate such and such a politician, or 100 songs about heartbreak, or 100 songs about love. But life isn't 100 stories. When you look back on your life, I don't think there'll be 100 love stories, or 100 heartbreak stories, or 100, you know, terrible things such and such a politician did. It's a sort of mixture of all of those things and many more. You know? So that's what I'm trying to do, to make a short story long.
Yeah, it's working very well. It's one of the things that got me really interested in the band. There's definitely lyrical depth to it. In a time with its current period, lyrics are not as important as it would have been in other periods. But you're kind of pushing the power of the words in the pop song back up again.
Yeah, definitely trying to, man. That's what we believe in. That, like, I think we sort of see songs as small, like little movies, you know, where the soundtrack is a really important aspect of the movie, maybe the most important aspect of the movie. You know, like a sort of like, what movies have like amazing soundtracks? Do you know, like Inception? Do you know that movie Inception? And that like that amazing Hans Zimmer soundtrack with Johnny Marr and stuff. You know, without that, if that didn't have music, that movie probably wouldn't be very good.
Oh, Hans Zimmer's brilliant. I mean, with Hans Zimmer, you can just listen to him and not watch the film, and you have the film.
Yeah. But I think that's like sort of where what we try and get at. Do you know, like Train Spotting? You know, the Lust for Life and Train Spotting. Do you know, like how effective that is? That like that feeling. That's kind of what I think that soundtrack actually is like. That movie and soundtrack is quite inspirational for us. like that Lust for Life and Perfect Day, the way he uses that, and Born State, like the whole soundtrack is great. But that Lust for Life, kind of like the way the film and the music just sort of lock in to each other, and sort of you can't separate one from the other at the time. I think we're big fans of that.
Perfect moments in pop culture, in it, because it's not just music; it's what it looks like, sounds like, feels like. I mean, that's why it's the ultimate art form. With a piece of music, you could make a pictorial story just by listening to it, can't you? And that's what these things you just talk about do really well.
So true. That's exactly it.
So what the current plans? I mean, this is really odd period, and you got to London, things are just starting to happen, and then just as nobody expected, a pandemic turns up.
Yeah, right. 100%.
It's so difficult for a young band, you got it all in front of you. I mean, how are you going to navigate? Do you have any ideas how you can navigate around this?
I think first and foremost, I think we're just going to make sure we're just focusing on writing songs, releasing songs as much as we can, because that's what we can do, for sure. Do you know what I mean? And I think you need to sort of, assert your control over what you can control. You know what I mean? Because like writing songs is something that hasn't been effective. Particularly, I mean, it has in the sense that you can't sort of get inspiration from seeing someone in the pub do this, that, and the other, but it hasn't. I can still sit there with a notebook and sort of write words on a page. Gig-wise, it's a tough one, isn't it? It's a toughie. Like, because I've heard 10 different comments as to when gigs will be back on. Everyone's booking gigs. It's all kind of sort of start kicking off with bookings again, like in terms of, you see like bands announcing such and such for December, such and such for May, June, August, but it's like, is December, is November, like, is that too optimistic? Is that irrational? Is May too optimistic? I don't know. Yeah,
it's difficult. I think all you can do is work within the parameters. If it has to be 20 people in a room or 10 feet apart, then at least somebody's in a room doing something, aren't they?
Right. Yeah. It is what it is. Just have to work around it, like you said, and work within it, I guess. And I think focusing on what you can do instead of focusing on what you can't do. I think that's what it's like in life in general. I think that's what it's all about, really, isn't it? Because like, if you focus on what you can't do, you'll never be happy, will you?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, that's kind of all I need there. Yeah.
Thank you, man.
So you can go downstairs and write some songs now. At least all your band's in one place, so you can actually be creative. That's a plus, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm in Galway for a bit to see family and stuff. We came back home just for a little while, but I'll be back. I'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll be, we'll be back onto writing and recording and rehearsing as much as possible and stuff.
Right. Well, good luck with everything, and I'll
cheers, mate.
See you on the other side of this thing. Yeah.
See you soon.
Brilliant. All right. Thanks. Bye. Yeah.
Are you? Is that both of them done?
Sorry.
Is that both done?
Yeah, that's both. Yeah, because I just edited them into 2. Yeah.
No way. All right.
Yeah. Very clever.
I was like,
yeah.
Very good. Yeah. I was wondering actually, because you said the first one was the boring questions. I was like, these questions aren't boring.
Oh yeah. Well, nobody ever likes. It's boring to talk about where you're from and stuff, isn't it? But if you get it, if you couch, a bit more interest. But if it's a new band, people need to position it in their heads, don't they? Why, where they from, what they're doing, and. Do
you know what though, as well, is when you put it like, I think you gave it maybe a bit more, another level of interest. I can't speak today, man. Made it more interesting as well though, because the Ireland thing. You sort of hit that nail on the head with like, Ireland has definite associations now, which is great. I mean, it's great. Irish music's doing well. It's a brilliant thing. But it's funny because people expect us to be in the middle of that. Like physically, geographically in the middle of that. And we're, like you said, we're sort of like, if if you're living in London and there's a band in, sort of feels like if Oasis are kicking off and they're like, oh, band in London, oh, it's great that the scene near you is kicking off, isn't it? You know, it's like, well, up there it is. Yeah, it's great for them. Yeah. And it's like...
Also, I know what the roads are like in Ireland, so I know even if it's about 8 miles, it may be 1,000 miles to Galway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about fucking 3-day drive.
Yeah, just crazy little, tiny little villages going on forever. And it's amazing how rural a lot of Ireland still is compared to England, isn't it? And
so much of it, man. So much of Ireland is like, even like I said, Galway city is one of only 5 cities in Ireland, and it seems like a town. I say if you went there, you'd be like, this is a nice little town. Do you know?
I've been there.
Have you? Oh, you've been? Yeah.
I gigged there about 25 years ago.
Did you?
Yeah, so I have no idea where the gig was, but I remember being in Galway. I've been there a couple of times.
Have you?
Yeah.
It's a nice little place, man. Where are you now? Are you Manchester?
In Manchester, yeah.
Yeah. And what are you like flat out at the moment, or are you sort of just doing, like, trying to navigate the whole lockdown? Is it sort of tough for you?
Yeah, it's doing the same things in a different way. So I do a lot of these Zoom interviews. So I've got my YouTube channel, so that's one of the interviews. Do some for somebody else. Still doing the website, but also McGee got me into work on his film, the documentary that he's doing parallel to the biopic. So he made me executive producer of that. So that's been quite interesting. So I've done quite a few interviews with Alan in the last few weeks over Zoom and things, just honing it down. It's odd. There's probably more going on than ever, but it's like in a vacuum, isn't it? Because no matter what you do, it doesn't feel like you're doing anything, because it doesn't feel like there's anybody out there, does it?
That's the thing. And that's kind of what I was sort of fumbling to get at earlier when you mentioned about being in Galway, is like, that's what it always felt like, was that it doesn't matter what music we make, because no one's going to, like, there's no one in Galway to hear it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all the other bands play different music, so they've obviously got like different tastes to us. So just fucking do what you want. Listen to, like, I'm surprised we didn't end up like turning into like Ziggy Stardust and Spiders from Mars. Do you know what I mean? It was like, because it could have gone that way. Do you know what I mean? You could literally have just done whatever we wanted to, and that was great. It was like it's so liberating, like, that we can just do, like, take.
I think that most of the great bands, no matter where they come from, even if it's from Manchester, which is a huge music scene, if they're not part of that scene, it's actually better for them. The bands that never get anywhere are the cool scene bands who have a bit of a following in the town. That lasts about 2 years, and they get trapped in the local circuit.
Yeah, that's so true, man. It's so true. I look like even bands like the Smiths. I remember seeing them. I think it was Johnny Marr talk. I think it was probably in his biography, or his autobiography. And he was saying how, like, there was like a lot of the Hacienda bands at the time, and so, like, obviously a few of them really kicked off. As bands in the scene, there's always a few bands in the scene that do kick off a bit, but a lot of them, like you say, do exactly what you said. You sort of get that. You sort of just go around the circuit, sort of jumping on the coattail of hype, kind of. And the Smiths sort of did their own thing and just sort of.
Yeah, it's quite telling that Johnny, he went straight to Rough Trade with the demo. He didn't go to Factory. He was seen a national, even an international band, and not a local band.
Yeah, that's like what we did as well. We used to go from Galway to London. Like, we used to fly over to London to do that. We used to stand outside the BBC and hand out CDs of our, like, original demos. We went to Rough Trade. We went to Universal. Just went to any label that we even knew the name of. We'd go there, just hand them CDs. Because we thought, I always think that meeting someone in person is way more effective.
Oh, yeah, especially in the email. Email's great because you can get in touch with everybody, but it's only in touch.
In touch, yeah. Exactly, yeah. Like, you can sort of, when you see someone and you look at, like, you're looking at each other face to face, and you say, here's my, like, I've just flown from Ireland to give you the CD. Do you know, I think, like, it's worth it for that 5-second interaction where they just go, oh yeah, Sam, thanks. I never listen to it again, maybe, but, like, it's for those who do. And, like, that's what we were always about, that, just like you said, seeing it as Galway to international, not like, oh, let's try and like, I don't know, let's try and like hop on this Scalextrics of like Galway and then West Ireland and then Ireland, and you know, just sort of got big plans,
Yeah,
big ideas. I think
that would have clicked with McGee because he's always ambitious as well. You know, it's
yeah. He says that actually. He says that he always appreciate that, which is nice to hear. Do you know what I mean? Because we were doing it anyway. It wasn't. We weren't doing that to impress McGee, but it's just great that he sort of like appreciates that. He said that when U2 came over to London, they were quite similar, like in the sense that not musically, obviously, but they, you know, like just peppered London with, just met anyone they could and sort of like gave everyone they could a demo and put posters up everywhere. You know, it was all very DIY, very much like, let's not fuck about here. Let's. Joe David Bowie, he said like, you might know this quote, but he was like, when I'm making the music, I'm 100% musician. When I'm selling the music, I'm 100% businessman.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a good one. It's like...
Yeah, because it's protecting your art. The art's ring-fenced, isn't it? But what you have to do to make your art survive is a different process. I mean, no matter what people pretend, everyone's got to hustle it. Yeah. Exactly,
yeah. It's like... Because it's hard to like sort of... I think a lot of people find it hard to get that ring fence, like you say. But like I think we've sort of... For us, the ring fence was being in Galway is where we make music. We're not gonna. There's no no A&R man's gonna be in Galway on a Tuesday night. No booking agent, no manager, no. Like you're not gonna be walking around Galway looking for a band to interview on a Wednesday. Do you know what I mean? So like Galway was just, this is where we make music, and it was great for that reason. And that's what Northwest London is now. This is like, we make music here, and nothing influences that, and no one's gonna see it. And then it's like, then we'd fly to London and like try and just like blag our way into backstages to meet fucking Carl Barat or someone to give him a CD, you know, just whatever. Like, just that was all like just hustling and just sort of trying to make it work. Because I think we've sort of always had that work ethic that a lot of bands like sort of more, I don't know, like bands who sort of don't live at home in the city and sort of don't need to sort of like work. I think we have the same sort of work ethic as a lot of maybe like northern bands would have, which is like Oasis or Arctic Monkeys, or a lot of them, which is like you have to work for your supper, basically. Do you know what I mean?
It's not a hobby, is it? It's
no, exactly. It's not a hobby. Yeah. Hobby bands. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was never that for us. It was always like, if we're gonna stick down 9 to 5s for the next like years and years, and sort of like move to London, so like move away from all our mates, all our family, like a lot of comfort and stuff. Like, you fucking better work for it. Do you know what I mean? We always have worked for it. Yeah, that's just how I found it.
That's great. Actually, I'll add that bit on. That's a really good bit.
Thank you, man.